women relationships get significantly better. The communication is better. They understand they both have wounds and egos and all this stuff going on. They know how to support each other better. And because she has been healing her relationship with food,
Welcome back to the Love Stories podcast. I'm your host, Charlene Byars. I'm so excited to welcome my next guest to the show today. Amber Romaniuk is an emotional eating, digestive, and hormone expert who helps high-achieving women build body confidence, heal self-sabotaging patterns with food, and achieve vibrant health through deep mindset and self-care work. Host of the No Sugarcoating podcast with over 2 million downloads, Amber draws from her own powerful journey of overcoming emotional eating and now guides others to experience true body freedom. I can't wait for you to hear this conversation. And remember, stick around for the tip of the week at the end of the show. Welcome to Love Stories, a relationship podcast for successful women, where we talk about love, dating, relationships, and how great love stories are made. I'm Charlene Byars, and I'm so excited to share all the things that you can apply to create a beautiful love story of your own. Cheers to great love. Well, hello, Amber. Yay, she's here. Oh my goodness, girlfriend. I just want to tell you this conversation that we're about to have today, and I know you're going to share all the things, but it is such an important conversation because this podcast was, it was birth, to talk about the matters of the heart. And we know we're going to talk about the matters of the heart. But how, when it comes to the matters of the heart, how it really starts with our own relationship first that we have with ourselves, and how, when it comes to taking care of ourselves and the relationship we have with food and the things that we're going through, how that just plays a part overall. Overall, how we feel about ourselves and how we feel about, the matters of the heart. So I am so excited to talk to you because, I know that the work you're doing, and I know they just heard your professional bio, but I also want you to just kind of start out and let us know exactly what you do and how you help people. And then we're going to kind of go from there. How does that sound?
Yeah, it sounds amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I feel so blessed to be with you today. This is such an important conversation. And yeah, I've been doing this for 12 years now. It's just been such an honor to be of service. And I coach women all over the world to claim food and body freedom. And what that really means is getting to the key core roots of why women are in self-sabotage with food. Why are you binge eating? Why are you emotionally eating? Why are you using food as a coping mechanism? Because that's what we're using it for. And how do we help you understand the triggers behind that? And truly what's at the root is not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy. There is a lack of self-love, a void that we're trying to fill with food or alcohol or shopping or whatever the external things are that we will never fill with food. And so we go on a deep journey to actually explore these emotional eating triggers, these weight loss blocks. And what they really are is they're just really showing you where you're out of alignment and they're trying to bring you home to yourself. And I went through all of that. I went through binge eating, food addiction, bulimia, emotional eating. I lost and gained over 1,000 pounds in 5 years. That is not a typo, because when you're binge eating and then you're trying to diet your way out of it to gain control and you don't actually deal with the roots, you fall back into binge eating eventually. And so I was up and down 30, 40, 50 pounds every other month and spending money I didn't have on food. And so that really was a eye-opening opportunity for me to go, I don't love myself. I hate myself. I'm trying to tie my worth to the number on the scale. I feel like garbage doing this. I'm bloated and unhappy and depressed and broke and have a crappy job. I'm alone. And so that was kind of like where it all started. And I was to the point where I was eating out of my garbage can. I'd throw the food away and then it would be like, I'm not going to pick out of the garbage can. And then it would be like, screw it. If this is the last time I'm going to do this, I might as well eat the cookies. And then I would do that. And it just got to the point where I was honestly concerned for my life that if I kept up the habits and behaviors that I probably wouldn't make 30, and I was only 21, 22 at the time. And so then I went on a healing journey, and that's really what prompted me into this journey of creating this business and helping other women. And I've worked with men as well, because it is a very like significant epidemic that actually isn't talked about enough.
Mhm.
A lot of people don't realize that, especially here in North America, binge eating is the number one diagnosis above cancer and heart disease.
Really?
And
I didn't know
90% of
that.
the yeah, 90% of the female population struggle and about 40 to 50% of men struggle. So it isn't a silent epidemic that is not being talked about enough and is not being, in my opinion, addressed necessarily in accordance.
And wow, how
Yeah.
important is that we're starting with this conversation because what you just said was so powerful. And I think, when it comes to the relationship with food, and I know we just talked about that. It's not just for women, it's also, for
Mhm.
men. But when I think about that, just myself as a woman and how I've, for as long as I can remember, seriously, Amber, I've always had like not the best relationship with food. But I love food and then
Yeah.
I don't. And then I restrict. And it's really, I can look back and I can see how my relationship with how I looked at food and how I ate or didn't eat or whatever that was, or over exercise or didn't exercise or didn't like myself or always criticizing myself. Um, I could really see how that started from a young age for me.
Mhm.
And I would like to take you back a little bit. How did you grow up?
Mhm.
And where did you grow up? Did you grow up with a mom and a dad? What was the dynamics when you were a little girl?
Yeah, totally. So my mom and my dad had me, and I was the only child. And I grew up in the household, and there's a couple key things that I think really impacted my upbringing. It's no one's fault, but
Mhm.
when I was healing, it's like, wow, these experiences had a significant impact, and I didn't even realize it. So, first thing was when I was 5, we had moved out to an acreage, and so I started taking the school bus, and so
Okay.
got on the bus. All the older boys start to call me ugly and fat, and then the whole bus makes fun of me. That was such a traumatizing experience. I felt
Mm.
so hurt. I took that in so deep and I believed them. And that literally shaped my identity for the next 20 years of my life, that I'm fat and ugly and no one is going to love me except my parents. And then the second thing is that my mom was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis before I was born.
Okay.
And so I feel like there was just this dynamic of there was so much going on with her and so much grief in processing the decline that I felt like I couldn't, and this is just personal choice of
Mhm.
survival. I felt like I couldn't like reach out for this support, or like I felt like it was a burden. Oh, I'm struggling with this. I don't want to let them know that I was bullied on the bus today because they're dealing with that. And that is so big. And I do not want to bring more to the table. So essentially, I just like took everything in and didn't want to bother anyone with my issues or my stressors or my emotions. And also, my mom and I had a very connected relationship with food. And part of that, I think, was her trying to compensate for a lot of the things we couldn't do together due to her symptoms. And so, food was always available, whatever I wanted, and we wanted whenever we wanted. And after I healed my relationship with food, I actually observed lovingly that she was in a deep food addiction, and that had been birthed post her diagnosis. And that was one of her ways to try and cope through it because she was losing control with her body and trying to have control with food. And so those are some of the things, and like, be good, shut up, don't, or not shut up, but like, don't feel your emotions, don't
Yep.
cry, like, be strong.
Yep.
Like, that was part of the dynamic. I'm very grateful I grew up in a healthy dynamic. There was no abuse or anything like that, but it's just
Mhm.
like those things really like shaped my wounded inner
Yes.
child that then got so wounded and just felt like she had to just do it all herself and didn't want to bother anyone, and I've just got to take care of everything. But I was unconsciously starting to emotionally eat at such a young age. I just didn't even realize that that was what I was doing. And it blew up in my face in my early 20s. But that was part of the upbringing, though, was that's where it birthed that body image insecurity. And then this, like, I'm alone and I have to deal with everything alone. So I might as well have food as my friend along the way.
Right. No, that makes total sense. We talk about a
Yeah.
lot on this show about how, and we take people back to their childhood, but the realization is it's not to poo-poo or blame anybody, because I really believe this with all my heart. I've been doing this for a moment, and I really believe, our parents for the most part, they do the best they can with the resources they have and their own healing and their own journey. And we get to learn. We get to learn.
Yeah,
But,
totally.
there's a but. Okay. Allow hi, but again, we get this. This is real.
Yeah.
But again, the way that we grow up and the way that, we experience certain things really do shape us.
Mhm.
And it does. It can be like we don't even realize it, but it can be unconscious. Like it just
Yeah.
shapes us. It doesn't mean that it's not something that we can't work through and change, but it really does shape us.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that because I think that's really important to give people that perspective. Because also, for the listeners, the love story community, honestly, they can realize, we all have a journey. We all
Mhm.
have, a different way of being brought up and a different perspective.
Yeah.
But when you hear these stories, it really starts putting the pieces together.
Mhm.
It really starts putting the pieces together. So this is really good. So let me ask you this. So I know later on you're able to kind of like look at things and get this awareness of where this started from.
Yeah.
What age were you when like the very first time that you realized, something's a little off here. I do have, either I don't know if it was like you thought you had an addiction or you thought, something was not healthy. What happened? What
Yeah.
age were you?
Yeah, so I'd been 21,
Okay.
and what had happened was I had my first real breakup, and I was so upset I couldn't eat, lost weight really fast.
Okay.
And then I couldn't attain the restriction and the overexercise I was doing. And then I started binge eating. And I just didn't eat one or two things. It was like a table full of food. And I would eat until I was so full I was sick. And so when I gained 80 pounds in 4 months and felt unrecognizable, and all of a sudden realized when I start eating certain things, I can't stop. And all I can think about is food, whether I'm trying to asphyxiate over dieting, restriction, burning calories, or over consuming. I'm like, this doesn't feel right. But I felt so out of control that I didn't know at the time how to stop. And this is another thing I say all the time. And I went through this. I was honestly in this denial that it wasn't a big
Okay.
deal. Food is my friend. Who would I be without food? I don't know how I'm going to deal with all this. There's unknown, there's fear. I have so much weight to lose. So there's like this huge intimidation factor. I have
Yes.
no idea what to do about any of this. Plus,
Yes.
my inner critic be like, it's not a big deal. Food's your friend. Like, this is what you do. Like, who would you be without it? Right. So it's like I'm in this comfort zone of suffering.
Okay. Yeah.
And the thought of getting uncomfortable and dealing with it did not feel good. So I stayed in that suffering for a little while before I really was like, okay, no, I've got to deal with this.
Yeah. So you just okay, that's good. And what happens to us because I mean again, I found myself, a little different story, but I found myself also in a state different stages throughout my life
Hmm.
that I would also feel like I'm doing this binging, and I've gone through either restricting, completely really restricting and over exercising
Mm.
to and I do relate it back to certain times in my life too,
Yep.
certain moments, right? And then I also found myself kind of like what you were saying, knowing that, oh gosh, it's okay, I'm okay, I'm healthy, but I knew I
Yeah.
wasn't. Where does this come from? What happens in our brain? What's going on with us when
Oh
we
my
are in
goodness.
these, yeah, when we are in these yo-yo moments,
Mhm.
what's happening? I want everyone to hear this.
Yeah. So there's multiple layers and it's complex. And that's why, I don't want you to be so hard on yourself if you're struggling with this because we're not taught how to deal with this. So
Okay, good.
what is going on is we have the fight or flight center of the brain called the amygdala and is constantly scanning for threat to keep you alive. And when you think about doing something different than what is currently familiar and comfortable to you, it senses that as a threat because the amygdala senses discomfort as a threat to your survival. So it's going to put you into more of a fight or flight in hopes that you're going to revert back and stay in your comfort zone, even if you're suffering and struggling there, because it's just trying to keep you alive. So that's the first thing. The second thing is then we have what I call the ego mind, which is the inner critic, right? That lives in the mind. It's the critical part of you that constantly pushes you into fear, worry, doubt. You're never going to change this. Why would you change this? The denial, trying to tell you it's not a big deal. it's going to ride on the back end of this amygdala going, stay in your comfort zone. And the ego will justify, yeah, it's not a big deal. Food's your friend, right? All that dialogue, right? And so if we don't know that that voice isn't the true us and we don't know how the brain is functioning, it's just there's such a stronger pull to stay where we are, even if we're suffering. And then we have brain neurotransmitters. So most women, I find, like, or just in North American society, because of inflammation, processed food, high stress, EMFs, like all these things we're exposed to, we have low dopamine levels, low serotonin levels. And these are your mood boosting neurotransmitters.
Mm.
Dopamine is produced in the brain, serotonin is produced in the gut. We have other ones as well that are just as equally important, but those are two of the ones you hear about the most. And when you're inflamed and your body's overwhelmed and you're fighting with food in your body and you have high stress, you're going to have suppressed dopamine and serotonin because inflammation suppresses these and also interrupts the hormone production and the other processes in the body that help us produce these. And so the lower your dopamine and serotonin, the more desire you have to reach for quick fix highs.
Mm.
So like
Okay.
I'm sad, I want sugar, I'm bored, I
Yes.
want to eat a bag of chips. Like we want the quick high versus like identifying what I'm feeling and now I'm going to go meditate or go in nature or talk to somebody or like
Oh,
work through it.
yes.
So like we're literally chasing that reward, quick euphoric moment.
Okay.
And that's why it can feel so hard to stop because if you're constantly feeling low and you're beating yourself up because you're unhappy with your body, your weight, your bank account, your relationship, it's like, I need a quick pick me up, right? And then it's like food is your quick pick me up or mindless scrolling or shopping or whatever your vice is, but they all do the same thing. You have this like few moments of what feels like euphoric bliss before you
Okay.
crash. And then you feel the guilt, the shame, and all of that. So these are some of the things that are happening in the brain that are enabling this behavior. And a lot of the food is designed to be very addictive on purpose because these big companies know how the brain works and how these neurotransmitters work, and they've
Fascinating.
designed the perfect high. And then the last piece, I mean, there's so many, but the last big piece with
Yes.
the brain is I often find, and I did this, but there was a certain time of day where I'd be the most triggered to overeat or binge. And so we all have that vulnerable time of day. So for me, it was the evening. For some of my clients, it's when they get home from work. Some it's the morning. But the more you repeat a pattern, the same time of the day, you literally grow a new pathway, or what is the sciencey term, new neurotransmitter in your brain. And I was doing this for like years, right? So it got
Okay. Yes.
so strong and ingrained. And so even if there was nights where I did not want to do it, this it's lighting up and your brain is literally telling you it's time to do this, it's time to do this, it's time to do this. And it's like when you don't know these things, this is
Yes.
why it feels like such a fight and feels so easy to give into it
Yes, and you feel
because
like such a failure.
yeah,
You feel like you're so
exactly.
disappointing yourself
I
all the
know.
time.
And
You're like,
it's
"I knew tonight I wasn't gonna do that,
yeah.
and I'm so weak," and you just beat yourself
Mhm.
up. It's horrible,
Yeah.
and I'm so weak, and I cannot believe, and then you do it, and you're so right. In the
Yeah.
moment, you're like, "Oh, it's not that big of a deal." Then I wake up, and I'm
Mhm.
like, "Why did you eat that bag
Yeah.
chips again, Charlene. You ate
Yeah.
so good today." Okay, that makes so much sense. It's
Yeah.
almost like say it again, it's almost like this.
It's a pathway. It's literally a habit in the brain that's lighting up. It's the time of day,
Okay,
right? And then we can also have
makes sense.
environmental, like so for me, my last trigger that I had to heal was when I'd go home to visit my parents because
Okay.
think of all the emotional eating I was doing there. And so every time I went home, the visit my parents pathway would light up and it would be like, why all of a sudden do I want to lose control? Or like Christmas is a big trigger for people because they're literally just like eating everything all day, every day for like 2 weeks. So we can have
Wow.
these circumstantial environmental pathways or like seasonal pathways or certain times of year or places that you visit. That's the only time the pathway lights up. But primarily, yeah, it's that certain time of day. It's just like when you wake up, if you're used to waking up and showering or waking up and like doing that thing, you've wired a pathway so deeply in your brain, you don't have to think about it.
Okay, yeah, you
Yeah,
it's just okay, so let me ask you this then.
it's a habit.
It's a habit. Okay,
Yeah,
so but it's even more than a habit because it's almost right because
yeah.
it's literally, I call it. I have these little words for the inner voices, and I've said this before, but I have these little words, and the one this is what I call it, the one that is like talking to us and when I stop talking to us, I call it the itty bitty shitty committee, and yeah, right, like the itty bitty shitty committee. I'm like, would you just stop? But
Yeah,
but it's more than that, like you just said, it's our wiring.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's even hard to go against it. Okay,
Mhm.
okay. I know this is I have like so many questions right now, but I'm gonna slow this down. Okay. If we find ourselves in that pattern, okay, that pattern, that and that man, that's so me. I've been on this no, not right now, but I've been on this, like, okay, trying to make sure that I have a healthier relationship with food, that I move my body, I take care of myself. I have all this
Right.
these plans, right? So for the most part, I was doing great. So I would wake up and, I was like, I'm winning the day. And I would work out, I would drink the water, I would have a nice dinner. I was doing really good. But then I kept calling myself, I'm self-sabotaging myself because as soon
Mhm.
as I sat down, as soon as I started watching a little show, oh my goodness, it was the itty bitty shitty community. They're like, come on, Jane, come on, just a little snack, just a
Yeah.
little snack.
Yeah.
So then I would have this snack, and then I would feel bloated in the morning. And then I did this whole weird cycle again. And it was so disempowering. Okay.
Mhm. Yep.
So if the listeners are listening right now and they have their own little pattern,
Yeah.
what is something that we can do to start shifting that?
Yeah, I'll give you a
Okay.
couple different approaches
Okay.
depending what
Okay.
feels resonant for the audience. So,
Okay.
I think one of the biggest things first off is to be aware of what time of day do you feel most vulnerable to food.
Okay.
Just being aware. Awareness is our superpower. It's the first step. Second, when you go into that time of day, so you put the show on
Okay.
and right, the ego's like, oh, eat the thing. It's like, okay, before I give in, I'm gonna ask myself, is this physical or emotional hunger? Do I actually need to fuel my body, or is my desire to eat because I've turned the TV on and I associate TV with eating, and I have a TV and pathway or TV and eating pathway that's also lighting up right now, right? So asking, is this physical versus emotional hunger is very important, because if you're
Okay.
eating and you're not actually hungry, it's emotional. You have this association. Um,
Okay.
but the
That's
caveat to that is a lot of women do not have a hunger signal, and that is hormone related. So if you're like, I'm
mm,
confused and I don't know because I don't feel hungry, we've got to look at and talk about what's going on hormonally, because that's like a whole other ball game. And you should be having a hunger signal regularly through the day, including in the morning. If you're not, there's something out of whack in the body. So it's the first question, though, is physical or emotional hunger, right? And then the second thing is, you can also go, okay, I know I'm actually full. I don't need to eat. So can you turn the TV off for a few minutes or pause what you're doing if you can? Leave the room, leave the food temptation, and start asking yourself, what is this actually about?
mm,
Why am I wanting this? Am I stressed? Am I tired? Am I bored? Did I have a bad day? Am I actually thirsty? Right? Like, what is actually going on? And you have to actually start questioning and exploring why you're triggered, because that's how we're going to start to break free from it. Even pull out a journal if
oh,
you can and start writing about it. But
okay.
that's, to me, those are some of the best places to start with this is this physical or emotional hunger, being aware of your vulnerable time of day, and then actually starting to explore what's going on.
What's going on? So
Yeah.
it's really, really getting that awareness from the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, I love that. So then let me ask you the next question then. So how do we know the difference between that and hormonal? Because me myself, look, I feel like I'm in a session right now. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And I know my questions. I definitely know, other people want these answers.
Yeah.
Um so for an example, so I'm also, at a stage in my life, I'm very young, I'm only 52,
Yeah.
but I'm at a stage in my life that I am going through premenopause.
Yep.
And my body is wackadoodle.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that with love.
Yeah.
And I don't know what is going on. I've noticed the same thing. I have these different cravings. I still do have what I said, that feeling, when I do the TV and and then I want to
Mm-hmm.
eat. And I always feel like I do crave, again, the same thing, either really, really sweet to like it's really sweet, or
Mm-hmm.
crunch. I gotta do that
Mm-hmm.
crunch. How do I know the difference, and what can I do also when it comes to my hormones, and how do I start taking care of that and getting under the
Yeah.
hood with that?
Yeah. So
That's
I want to
huge for me right now.
oh my gosh. And it is. And it really becomes significant once women hit 35, because that's where
Okay.
perimenopause starts.
Okay.
And it's a long journey, and we're not taught or equipped with how to deal with it. And most women are having hormone imbalances before perimenopause even starts, and they just
They
get
do.
bigger and amplified into that
Okay.
phase. So, first off, a couple of insights I want to give to your cravings because this is
Okay.
important. Our cravings mean different things. And if we're craving sugar, salts, crunchy foods, processed foods, that is a sign that there's certain imbalances potentially going on in the body physically or emotionally. And that is a communication. So, with sweet, from an emotional standpoint, I find sweet is usually tied to lack of joy or sweetness somewhere in life. And where am I craving something sweet that I want to compensate emotionally and eat sugar? With crunchy foods, there's usually some form of suppressed irritation, anger, or frustration. And when we start eating the chip or the crunchy food, we clench our jaw, and that secretes a small amount of dopamine in the brain, that feel good hormone, to kind of gently like numb us or like calm the emotions that we're not processing necessarily until we finish eating the bag of chips, and then we just don't feel great at all. From a physical standpoint, we will crave sugar potentially because our blood sugar is out of whack. What throws our blood sugar off? High cortisol, the stress hormone. Not fun. This is the number one most common hormone imbalance I see in my clients. Most women have it because you're overachieving, you're burnt out, you have too much on your plate, you're in perimenopause or menopause, like you've had a lot of commitment, right? So refined sugar cravings, refined carb, and salt cravings are very common with high cortisol.
Oh, wow.
And then salt cravings are very common with thyroid imbalances as well as if you're deficient in minerals like magnesium and sodium, which is actually more common than you would think. So even
Okay.
just there, we start to see with cravings the tie. And now when it comes to hormone imbalances, emotional eating, and perimenopause or menopause, what we start to look at is cortisol is your stress hormone. And through this phase, it starts to slowly increase. And now that can increase fatigue, brain fog, anxiety, low mood, lack of coping, weight gain, feeling puffy, retaining water, troubles
Okay,
losing
this
weight.
is me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I know,
I'm like,
right?
what is going on right now?
Yeah. It's
Yes,
real deal. Adrenal
it's
fatigue is
real.
real deal. Yeah. And so then what happens though is often I find there's an increase in appetite with high cortisol, and then our blood sugar is more sensitive. So if you wait too long to eat, you get hangry, right? You get the dizzy, faint, lightheaded, irritated, and you're like, what's the first thing I can find? I just need to eat something, right? Yeah. So that's very tied to high cortisol. And so that can really mess with our appetite and increase our cravings. And then again, there's that dialogue. You have no willpower. How come you did that again? And it's like hormones are no joke, and hormone imbalances are no joke. And they can really turn into emotional eating triggers very innocently, especially if you're like, why can't I lose weight? I'm eating clean and exercising and it's not coming off. I'm telling you, the things that you thought worked in your 20s and early 30s that were still kind of quick fix are not going to work once you're in perimenopause and menopause. The more we try to restrict or overexercise, the more it's going to stress out your hormones and just add more fuel to the fire. So we've really got to get into our self-love era, and we've got to learn how to tend to our hormones. And so the second thing that I see
Hmm.
is I see a lot of women with too low of progesterone, and that is I deem it the feminine hormone.
Okay.
Okay. So when we're burnt out and we're overbooked, I see this level drop. And that's because we're not spending enough time in balance, in being and resting and honoring ourselves, prioritizing ourselves. And that's really what the feminine is all about,
Yes.
slowing down. We want a
Slowing down.
balance of both masculine and feminine, but women are not giving themselves enough. And guess what happens? Stress hormones go up. Okay.
Okay.
And when you get into perimenopause, into menopause, you start to produce progesterone differently. So in your cyclical years, through ovulation, you're producing the majority of your progesterone and
Okay.
estrogen. Okay.
Yes.
When we start shifting in our life phase, now your adrenal glands, which produce cortisol, your stress hormone, also save some material to produce your progesterone, your estrogen, your testosterone. Okay. So if I'm highly stressed, that material that my adrenal glands need to produce progesterone as well is being stolen to convert into more cortisol. And now your
Oh,
progesterone is down in the dumps, potentially your estrogen as well. There's other things too. But with
okay.
low progesterone, this is so important. This is why so many women don't feel like themselves. They
Okay.
feel flatlined. They feel disconnected from everything. They feel apathetic, indifferent, low mood, crying, anxiety, because low progesterone depletes some of your key mood boosting neurotransmitters. So it's the calming hormone. And when it's low, we don't produce enough. This is important. GABA, which is a mood boosting neurotransmitter, it also helps us sleep and helps us feel connected. Oxytocin, which is like connection with loved ones, if that's progesterone's low, that can be low. And that can make you feel like bickery and I want to fight and more
He's not
critical
the
of,
right man for me.
yeah,
I'm not
exactly.
going through that part, but I hear that all the time.
No, like this
Yes.
is a serious hormone issue. Like women
Yes.
start to like get critical of their partner and start to like think that they're in the wrong relationship. And it's like, no, like it's probably low progesterone because that's what this imbalance impacts the way we feel around others. Even like maybe your career, the things you're most passionate about, you're all of a sudden like, meh, whatever. I don't care right now. And it's like, it's significant what that can do. And then also serotonin. So if progesterone's low, we need enough of that to produce serotonin. And serotonin helps us have stable mood.
Okay.
It helps with like feeling craving free. If serotonin's low, we'll have more sugar, processed sugar, and refined sugar cravings. And then it makes it easier to, to want to give in.
Yeah.
So I see so many women with low progesterone. I flagged postmenopausal in my mid 20s because of my binge eating behaviors.
Okay.
Yes. So I know what it
Wow.
feels like to have barely any progesterone, too high of estrogen. I had sky high cortisol, adrenal fatigue, all of it. So I get it. And it's not fun and you don't feel like yourself. And you can balance these things. Rest assured, ladies and gentlemen, you're not
Oh,
stuck with
yes.
this.
Seriously, we're not stuck with this. Yes.
No, but it's like if you feel off and you're just like, I don't know what's going on, I'm telling you, you've got to get your hormones tested. And if you
Okay.
have, and they're like, oh, everything's fine, everything's in the normal range, like this is perimenopause, you just have to deal with this. It's like those are not good enough answers. You've got to connect with someone who will see you and hear you and have the empathy and advocate for you and get you the answers. So the normal ranges for testing are far too big, and there's much smaller functional ranges that are more optimal and accurate.
Okay.
So we've got to be willing to look at that more holistic range and your symptoms. If you're having
The
symptoms,
symptoms.
it's
Yeah.
not in your head, you're not crazy. We've got to correlate both of them together and then tie in your habits and behaviors. So
All together.
yeah. And so
Okay.
estrogen can do similar things with like mood and stuff, and same with testosterone. And then the thyroid's the other thing. So your thyroid is your metabolism and it governs your body temperature, a big part of your mood. If it's sluggish, you're constipated. Your hair's falling out. You have very dry skin. You have poor muscle recovery. You're waking at 3 a.m. Same with progesterone. It's like 3 hours awake in the middle of the night. You don't feel hungry if you have a thyroid issue. So that's why I was mentioning earlier, like you got to look at your hormones. You're exhausted in the morning. Brain fog is like next level. Again, there's potentially more apathy and you're just like, I don't know what I feel like. It's just
Right.
so,
Yeah. You
yeah.
just don't even feel
And
anymore.
it's next to impossible to lose weight. So now we stack on multiple hormone imbalances, stress, emotional eating. And then it's like, you wonder why the things aren't working, but you're like, oh, it's my fault. There's something wrong with me. My body won't change. And it's like, no, we have not been properly educated on what's going on and why, and how to do the proper investigation to start addressing and getting validation, right? So that you
And
can start
getting
making the
validation.
changes. It's just such an epidemic. The female hormone imbalance issues is a huge epidemic as well. It's not being properly addressed. But it starts with that cortisol stress hormone.
It starts with the cortisol.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really important. I mean, wow, that answers a lot.
Yeah.
So, if we are in that stage, I mean, seriously, and
Mhm.
when it comes to, like you just said, our hormones and stuff like that, again, where do we start? Like, what can we do? What's the first step that we can start getting some help?
Yeah. So I think the first step is you've got to work with somebody who
Okay.
is well versed and fluent in hormone health. I'm happy to connect with people if you have a naturopath, a functional medicine doctor, but it's probably going to be someone that's more holistically minded.
Okay.
There are a few really good doctors that are very open minded, but a lot of them are like cortisol. We don't test that. You don't have a thyroid issue. You've got sleep apnea, and like they're just making stuff up and not like paying
So
attention.
when we go to our regular medical doctors,
Yeah.
it's okay. And like you said, if we go to the regular medical doctors in general and we do a regular blood panel,
Hmm.
a lot of times these things can actually be affecting us, but the blood panel doesn't really break it down necessarily.
No, and usually they don't order all the appropriate
They don't?
testing. So they'll
Okay.
do like a complete blood count, which has nothing to do with hormones. Yeah, it's good to make sure you don't have any infection. They'll do
Yeah.
your cholesterol, which
Okay.
all of it's helpful, but it's like it's not your
You need more.
hormones, right? And then
Yes.
maybe they'll do your iron and your B12 and maybe your thyroid stimulating hormone, which is one of 5 thyroid tests. Maybe they'll throw your estrogen in there, but maybe they won't. So they're not even potentially testing progesterone. They're usually never testing morning cortisol, which is again
Okay.
like the key thing amplifying everything else. They will fight with you to test, DHEA and potentially testosterone, your vitamin D. Even some doctors will be like, "You don't need that done. Everyone's low. Just take it." And it's like, no, we need to see.
Mhm.
So if they order all the tests, that's amazing. But then often I find when it comes to the review, they'll just be like, "Yeah, everything's fine. It's not that. You're fine. Everything's fine. It's just your age." So if you're having those kinds of experiences, this is where it's time to go and seek other support. Even if they do it all and they're like, "Yeah, I think you have a progesterone issue, take HRT." I would still seek a second opinion.
Okay.
Get
I love
on
that.
get on it if you feel called to. Like, I mean, don't hold back on that if you want to do that. That can help a lot, especially into
Mhm.
menopause. But um it's like, why is it low?
Okay.
How do you feel? Like usually the doctors don't stop. How are you feeling? Tell me about your symptoms. How's your sleep? How's your nourishment? How's your hydration? Right? They're not even asking those questions. And so,
Those are the I mean, really important questions.
yeah, yeah. Are you having
Yeah, because
troubles losing
that's your
weight?
day to day. That's your life.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
We're not talking about, I mean, yes, we have major things that can happen, but we're really
Mhm.
trying to have a better quality of life.
Yeah. Yeah, how's your mood?
How's your mood?
Are you having any, like, apathy? Are you happy most of the time? Are you craving anything? How's your
Your sex drive.
digestion? Yeah, how's your
Yes.
sex drive? Are you having daily bowel movements? These are questions that are not being asked, and then it's just like, "Yeah, take this thing, see you later," and that's not good enough, and you deserve so much more. And
Okay.
to me, the ideal is you go to somebody, they order everything, which is 20 plus tests,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
That's, it should be when you're getting your blood taken, you should be like, "Oh my gosh, like I feel like a vampire, like give me
Yes.
all my blood," right?
Yeah.
And then because I'm just sharing, like, this is what I do. We order the testing, you go get it
Okay.
done, and we spend like an hour thoroughly reviewing it because I want you to know what the tests are, what they mean, the correlation to your symptoms, and if something's off, why, what are the root causes, and then what are the steps we're going to take nutritionally, with supplementation, lifestyle, like sleep, healing your relationship with food, better gut health, better blood sugar, getting inflammation down. Are you
Yes.
overbooked? Are you people pleasing? Are you last on your list? We need to talk about you prioritizing yourself. Where are you on your self worth meter, right? And then we take all of that, and over time, you improve and you feel better because you're not just supplementing or taking a pill. You also understand what's going on correlated to your symptoms. And we're addressing the roots and making the lifestyle changes along with supporting hormones. Because here's the thing, if most
Mhm.
hormone issues start because of stress and you don't deal with the stressors,
Yep. That's so true.
you're not going to gain full relief,
Got it. That makes so
right?
much sense.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes so much sense. So we really, really, ladies, seriously,
Hmm.
how important is that? We really
Yeah.
have to get under the hood here.
Yes,
And we
we
have to
do.
advocate for ourselves. I
Yes.
love that you're saying that
Yeah.
because if you are feeling off, and this is really like relatable to you, you don't have to continue feeling this way. There's
No.
actual relief.
Yes.
Because I call this the cray cray stage. Like this is,
Oh,
you know what I mean? Yeah. So there's actual relief. Okay.
yeah.
What I hear you say, so this is the first step.
Yeah.
You got to get really curious and you got to be honest with yourself and see first what's going on.
Yes.
And then you actually 100% do that for yourself.
Yes.
Work with someone like you or holistic type of doctor
Yeah.
that can really break it down into bite sizes. And it's not just one or the other. It is. I love that. I love that it's a combination of things, but through that, we can actually start getting relief.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
100%.
I love that. I
Yes.
love that. Okay. So let me ask you this question. So you found yourself then in this breakup and this cycle, and you started, overeating, and then you gained all this weight,
Mhm.
and then you realize, oh my goodness, what's going on here? What happened with you, and how did you go from that stage that you were in, and what needed to happen for you so you to start shifting.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had to get really honest with myself that I didn't love
Mhm.
myself. I did not know how to cope with stress. I was leading with the itty bitty shitty committee that was like
Mhm.
calling the shots and leading. And I did not know what was triggering me. So I had to learn about my triggers, my emotional eating triggers, and heal them. I had to, or I wanted to learn how to cope with stress in healthier ways. So I started a self care practice and committing time to meditation, breath, nature, movement, yoga, the things that actually like were going to help me feel calmer and grounded and help me cope in healthy ways. I'd actually start practicing feeling my emotions. I was
Wow.
afraid to feel
Yes.
fear, worry, right? So I practiced like the first time I sat and felt, I just put on a timer for 30 seconds and I'm like, just try for 30 seconds and see what happens. And then I built from there because what I realized is, wow, I can feel and nothing bad is going to happen. And I had to learn how to forgive myself for everything I'd put myself through and learn to love myself, which was a lot of subconscious reprogramming, repetition, affirmations, tapping, catching negative self talk in the moment and shifting to positive. And that was a couple of a year process, but it really helped me claim my worth and really fall in love with myself and befriend myself. And it's like, I remember the moment where it all clicked and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think this is what it feels like to love myself. And I
Wow.
actually learned to love myself at my heaviest weight because
You
after I
did.
stopped binge eating, because
Okay.
of the mess of hormones, blood sugar issues, inflammation, etc., I gained that 80 pounds back really quickly. And I had to really focus on the rest, the self love, and now really immersing myself in learning about my hormones and how to work on balancing those. And it literally fell off. I was shocked. I was like, I thought you could
Really?
exercise and like eat clean for this. And obviously, I was eating clean, but I was actually doing too much movement and it was
Okay.
stressing my adrenals out and making all my hormones worse and keeping my body stressed. So I was
Kinda.
hanging on, right?
Yeah.
Weight is a protective mechanism. We hang on because the body doesn't feel safe and over exercising, especially when you're exhausted, will keep your body in an unsafe state. So I was resting more, napping more, all of that. And it fell off and I was shocked. I'm like, what? I was so conditioned that it was a harder approach. And so that's what I teach and preach to my clients is yes, you can lose the weight. The timing is going to look different for everybody, but you shouldn't have
Yeah.
to force it off because it's not going to stay off. We
Okay.
want to heal and get curious. Why am I hanging on? Why do I not feel safe? And those weight loss blocks are going to be a series of different imbalances to explore emotionally, physically, and so on. I also had to heal with my wounded inner child. We did a lot of work together. And that, again, that safety helped regulate my nervous system, helped my cortisol levels balance more, and that helped my hormones balance. And that was another about year journey, but that was like really incredible. So those are the things that I had to do to really shift that and just like really let my body lead. I'm like, she's so smart. Why am I not asking her what she wants? Why am I not talking to her? She has the answers. Right. And so that's really what I started to dive into in that. And it was a liberating, life changing experience because it really showed me how much of a role our traumas and our wounds and hormone imbalances will have on the body hanging on.
Yes, and can you also, yes, that is so important because can you also talk about honestly how all this truly genuinely plays an effect with our hearts?
Oh, yeah.
And let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And how if we are not feeling good or we're hormonal or we're in these cycles, how that can really affect us in how we think of love, how we attract love,
Hmm.
what we receive, obviously with ourselves and from the different people. Because I know
Yeah.
a lot of us, feel, often it's okay. I know we do this. I know I got it. It's always like, oh yeah, it's not me, it's that other person.
Yeah.
Why
Right.
we can't like you can't see sometimes what you can't see. So we
No.
think that we're putting all the blame, oh, he was just a jerk, or, he this or he that, or she did
Yeah.
this or she did that. But sometimes we don't realize it's us.
Yeah.
We can't see ourselves. We don't see really what's going on with ourselves because obviously we're dealing with our own things.
Hmm. Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
Oh my gosh, it's huge. And one of the things that I noticed when I was healing and thereafter was I kept attracting guys who had alcohol issues. It's like, of course, because I'm in this food addiction, I'm mirroring and attracting. And they were all emotionally unavailable because I didn't realize I was for myself and I didn't love myself. And I was expecting to get in a relationship and that would like fix things. Right. And even like Disney movies condition you like, you're going to find your prince and he's going to just be the
Totally.
savior. And yes, there's like my husband's like my hero and he's always
Yeah.
got my back, but like I
Yeah.
didn't need him to come and save me. Like I had to save myself. Right. But that's what I noticed when I was in this. And like those were the kinds of things I was attracting from like a relationship standpoint, and it never worked. And then I'd like beat myself up. There's something wrong with me. I'm not
Yes.
thin enough. I don't look good enough. If
Right.
I would have had that 10 pounds down, that would have like been the game changer. And so I kept bringing it back to all of that stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm not good enough. I don't deserve the relationship. Like all of that was part of that dialogue when I was fighting with my body and food. And truly, my heart wasn't open. Like, how could I possibly, if I don't know how to love myself, how am I going to attract someone else who loves themselves and then
Yes.
can love me? If I don't know how to give that to myself. And what's
Yes.
so funny is that once that self love clicked,
Okay.
my lovely soulmate of a husband, we had actually met while I was struggling with my food addiction,
Okay,
and
so
we
okay,
dated.
hold on, take me
Yeah,
back, take me back. I want to hear
yeah,
this story. Okay,
yeah,
so you're in a stage, you're still going through your process,
yeah,
and
yeah,
you're struggling,
yeah,
and you're not really loving yourself, but you're not
yeah,
understanding what's going on. The whole thing.
totally.
Okay, you're in this cycle. Okay,
Yeah,
then how do you meet your man?
yeah. So we meet like 14 years ago,
Okay,
and we date for a couple weeks. I'm like, he's the one for sure. Like I can
okay,
just feel
okay,
it. And then he breaks
okay.
up with me, and I'm like, what? Right. And
Yeah.
it was so emotional. And like we'd connect off and on every like year, once or twice. And then I had to just set a boundary and be like, if you don't want to be with me, like I like I'm never gonna fall out of love with you. And so then I'm like healing
Yes.
and the
So you
self-love
meet him,
clicks.
you guys, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I really like him, and then
Yeah.
he's like, no,
Yeah.
we're gonna pause again, and then he comes back and he comes out. Okay,
Yeah.
looking back, and I know he's not on today, and that's okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna get your take. What did he tell you was going on with him?
Yeah. So once we got back together, he had shared with me how he was going through a really rough, like low time with like, partying, hanging out with the wrong people, feeling really unworthy, depression. So it's like we
His
were
stuff.
literally like going through similar things and didn't even realize it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So then what happens?
Oh my goodness. So the self-love clicks, and I swear like 2 weeks later, he messages me on Instagram and it's just
Yeah.
like, hey, how's it going? And I'm like, do I even respond? Like, right? Because I'm like, I don't want to be hurt again. Anyway, so it's like, okay, we'll have a conversation. And we start talking more, and that energy feels different. And then we start spending some time together, and I'm just like, it feels different.
And
And
you
if
felt different about yourself.
oh gosh, completely
Okay.
different. I had
Let's see.
started my
Okay.
business. I was 2 years in. Like I had a deep level of self-love and respect, and that I was really anchored in. And then we
Good.
started dating, and then he officially asked me to be his girlfriend. And the night that he did is actually his birthday. And he's like, I'm so sorry I hurt you. I will never do that to you again. Like it was just such a powerful moment. And then that evolved, and it's almost been 10 years now, but it was just like we'd talk about how we were going through this stuff and neither of us knew. Right. And it's like,
Yes.
but we had to have that time to do the healing, so we come together and have our own individual love and respect, and then bring that, which I think is so important to the
Yes.
relationship, because we don't yell at each other, we don't belittle each other, we don't name call. I don't expect him to fix stuff for me, like emotionally. It's like, you talk about things, but it's like it's my responsibility if I have some unworthiness thing to like
You
look at
go
it
through
and
it.
heal
Yes.
it,
Yeah.
right?
You guys are
Yeah.
having, and that's so important that you're saying that, because again, how are we really truly going to find that
Mhm.
type of person? Because I
Yeah.
know, we talk about, a lot of the healing also, if you are with the right person,
Mhm.
and you guys really are already learning yourself and healing yourself,
Yeah,
when you come together is when the other healing starts, because
totally.
you have an opportunity to see yourself differently, because you are going to be mirroring each other in things.
Mhm.
I got that.
Mhm.
But you can't even get there. You can't even have that opportunity to actually help each other with certain things when it comes to the healing process if you haven't done it first yourself.
Totally. Yeah.
And so if you would have gotten with him, that first time, even though
Mhm.
you're like, this is the one. And you guys, this is what I'm saying. It really does come down to yes, timing's everything too. It
Mhm.
really is.
Yeah.
Because you can actually meet the right person but it might not be the right time for you
Totally.
because you're not ready. I don't know what that word that is, ready,
I love it.
right? Ready to receive that type of
Yeah.
love. Because if you can't love yourself,
Mhm.
you're not going to be able to really receive that type of love.
Yeah.
So things really worked out in a way that helped you guys.
Mhm.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
Helped you guys, yes, you had this attraction and you're like, I'm not buddy, stop hurting me. Because he
Yeah.
was going through his own thing. And
Yeah.
that's good that you guys didn't get together.
Yeah.
But when you guys got together is at a really good time, is what
Mhm.
you're trying to tell me. It wasn't like I said, nothing's perfect, but it went at a
Yeah.
different. Okay. Talk
Yeah.
about that. How
Oh my
important that.
gosh. It's so important. The timing was divine, and I think we just took it slow and there was nothing forced or pushed. And I think too, it was so cool because as we started spending time together, I'm like, I'm a woo gal. Like, I'll bring all the groceries. You have vegetable oil and you're covered in nothing else. I meditate. I like pray and I'm spiritual. And I'm like, we'll see if he's the right one, he'll totally love all these things about me because I'm not going to like, I've got my bags of vitamins and all
Yeah,
this
you got
stuff,
my
right?
stuff.
Yeah,
Yep,
I got
yeah,
all my
you got my
stuff, right?
stuff.
Yeah. And so it's great to just show up and be like, I'm going to promise to be myself
I love that.
and make sure, right? And he was very receptive to all of it. And he loved like getting into the healthier eating and learning about all this stuff. And like he
It's
started feeling
fantastic.
more
That's
and building
fantastic.
better health, which helped his confidence with certain things. And that was awesome. And like one of the biggest things I think that is so powerful to learn in your relationship is how to manage the itty bitty shitty committee. Because when you both know you have one and one of yours is triggered, wow, can you ever prevent like blowouts and fighting and arguing and like my ego is right now and like we can talk back and forth and we don't turn into like ego versus ego and all of that. And I think that's so powerful to be able to identify that and like what triggers you. Or even now he'd be like, yeah, like when I was a kid and this happened and this is one of the reasons I feel like I'm like this or had this insecurity. And it's like like him being able to connect things back to his childhood. Like it's so powerful to have gone through healing and talk about my experiences. And like I've done all kinds of healing and courses and stuff. And he just like picks it up and he's like, yeah, this thing. And I'm like, I just spent how much money to learn that? And you just
You're
are
like,
like,
yeah,
ta-da,
yeah,
awareness. I'm like, this is amazing, right? And
yeah.
it's just so this evolution and growth that we have experienced in our relationship together that continues is so powerful. Like we have grown so much together,
I love that.
which I think is just so important in a relationship. And like there's been times where there's been like learnings on both ends. Like I've had to surrender and be so vulnerable and he supports me in my feminine and vice versa. Right. And it's like, you can't do that healing, like you said, unless you're in the relationship. And so
Yes,
there's so much profound healing that has happened and continues to happen to deepen our bond. And
yes,
it's like everyone deserves to have that. And it does exist. And I think it's really about loving yourself so that you can
yes.
bring that overflow to the relationship, and not have expectation of the other person needing to be a certain
Or
way with
save you,
you
like you
or
said
save you.
earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, that other person's not gonna save you.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
really
It's
not.
not their responsibility.
No, it's not, and I always thought that that was gonna happen. I was like, "He gonna come save me."
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But no, he did not. I love him to death, but he didn't come save me. I had
Yeah.
to save myself.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm loving? I love this conversation. Oh, I think this is such an important, amazing conversation because what I love about this is we have all of us an opportunity to really slow down
Hmm.
and take a look at the things that we have been avoiding or the things that we don't want to look at and really look at it differently, really
Yeah.
look at it in a way that what it actually can be very empowering.
Yeah.
And ladies, and as women, I mean, how empowering that is when we are able to take control over ourselves in the
Hmm.
sense of, okay, I'm not here, I'm not alone, I'm not wackadoodle. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? One of the first things I haven't done for myself is, after listening to all this, I hope everyone's like, oh my goodness, I got to give myself a little grace here.
Yeah.
Oh, we got to give ourselves some grace. Woo!
Yes.
There's a lot going on. And one of the things too that I think is so important is, when we talked about again, yes, of course, with the matters of the heart, Sometimes you guys, it really does come down to, you know, other factors that she talked about. Sometimes if we are, because we have listeners that are single, we have
Mhm,
listeners that are
mhm,
married. So for the single ladies, this is what I heard you say today
mhm.
is that, take this time to really look inwards
Yes.
and put yourself in a position to know exactly how you feel about yourself. If you feel good about yourself,
Yeah,
if you're loving yourself, if you have what's your relationship with yourself, your food, how you're feeling. And if you are not in a good place right now, seek help. That's
yeah,
important. That's
yeah.
really important. You don't have to do this alone, ladies. You don't have to do this
No.
alone. And if you're in a relationship and you
Mhm.
are also in that space.
Yeah,
And you are like, oh my goodness, I married the wrong one. Oh Lordy, or whatever is going on, or you're just not feeling good, or you are,
yeah,
noticing you're not yourself. You are, maybe you're not, sexually really active anymore. All the things. Give yourself some grace
yeah,
and seek help.
yeah, totally.
Because you know what you said earlier? You said sometimes, if we are in that relationship or we're, upset with someone or not feeling it with someone, I cannot believe it actually could be hormones.
Oh my gosh.
Goodness gracious, that gave me chills.
Yeah, yeah,
Because hormones, again, two ladies, this is huge. This is why you were hearing so much about this.
yeah,
Because hormones can really honestly, this is what I'm hearing today. And let me know if I'm saying this correctly, because this is not my specialty. Hormones are not my specialty, and I know they are yours. But hormones can truly, genuinely affect how you feel about someone too.
100%.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I got chills too. Yeah,
Woo.
it
Oh, I got chills,
100% it does.
girlfriend.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I think before you, like, all of a sudden just be like, "Oh, yeah, this is it." It's like, no, like, get your hormones tested. I was on a podcast last week and we were talking about this, and she was talking about how, like, a lot of her clients, it's
Yeah.
hormones, and they're like, all of a sudden they're just like wanting to like ship up and leave. And it's like, then they get their test back and their progesterone is literally non-existent, and they
Okay.
get the proper stuff. And all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I almost did that. Right. Like, it's obviously like if you get your hormones tested and you work on them and it's still, then you can decide. But like,
That's a different issue.
but
That's a different issue. You got to go here first.
you gotta go here first, honestly. And one thing I want to share is
Yes.
when you do this, I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, my clients who are already married or in relationship, the relationships get significantly better. The communication is better. They understand they both have wounds and egos and all this stuff going on. They know how to support each other better. And because she has been healing her relationship with food, she's not backlashing and freaking out and projecting on him because she self-sabotaged again and doesn't know how to deal with it, or her hormones, and she can explain and what kind of support she needs and why she's been feeling this way. And it brings cohesive connection and understanding, which helps, right? With all of that, like, it's so cool to see the relationships get so much better. Yeah.
Oh, isn't that
Yes.
amazing? I just adore you.
Oh,
You
thank
have
you.
dropped some bombs today, like really good ones, because these are the conversations that light me up. These
Yeah.
are the conversations that light me up so much because it gives us all an opportunity to get some answers.
Yeah.
It gives us all an opportunity to get some answers. You guys, we are not stuck.
No.
We are not stuck. We're not stuck in feeling, yicky wicky. We're not stuck on, thinking that love is not out there for us. No, 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 no.
Mm-mm.
All of this can shift. All of this can change. And like we said even earlier, we really have to start with ourselves and being an
Yeah.
advocate for ourselves, and don't give up on yourself.
Yeah. Don't give up.
Push through it. And
Mhm.
again, you don't need to do this on your own. I don't even see how you can do this on your own. You actually
No.
need a professional to help you get, the testing, to
Mhm.
help you walk through it, because we're all different, you guys. We all have
Yes.
different situations. We all have different stress levels.
Yeah.
Not everyone is the same. We're not going to fit in a box. No, 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 no. So
No.
we're not talking like that. So I want you guys, honestly, if this is really resonating with you, okay, let me ask you this. How do we get in your world? How do
Oh.
we work with you? What do we do?
Yes. Well, I suggest coming over and checking out the website, amberapproved.ca. If you want to hop on a 30-minute complimentary consultation, we can do that and talk more about your journey and where you're seeking support and if we should work together. The podcast is called the No Sugarcoating Podcast. We have almost 600 episodes, and you will learn a lot about all of this there. So come take a listen to that. And then, of course, there's all kinds of like free workshops and emotional eating quiz and things on the website and follow on social. It's my name, Amber Romaniuk. But yeah, that's how we can connect and talk more about what's going on.
What's going on? And then
Yeah.
if somebody actually, that's wonderful, you guys. And we're going to leave some of this information on the show notes. If somebody's like, no, I'm ready, I need a deeper dive. How do they
Mhm.
actually work with you? Do you do one-on-one with
Yeah, so I
them?
do private
Okay. How's
coaching
it?
and
Yeah. What does it work
yeah,
like?
yeah, so we talk a little bit about what's going on in that consultation, and then it gives me a bit more insight likely into like the reality of the time it's going to take. So I offer different ranges of programs, 12, 6, 4, and 3 month. And all of those include a round of hormone testing in the
Okay.
program. So that's all in there. And so we start with an hour health assessment to thoroughly assess your symptoms, your health, your relationship with food, gut, blood sugar, all the different things, your cycle history, fertility, etc., mood. And then we order your hormone tests. And really, what dictates that is just like your location. So, some places it's a requisition to the lab, some it's a saliva test and a finger prick. So, once you figure out where you're located, that will help us get you the testing that we need. And then, usually within the first couple of sessions, we get those labs back and we dedicate a whole session, like I said, to review that and understand what's going on. And if we need more time, we spend a second session because I don't want to rush it and I want to make sure you can digest the information. And then we're connecting either weekly or bi-weekly, and we're diving into healing your relationship with food, building self-worth, healing people pleasing, learning how to manage that ego up in the mind, making sure your symptoms are improving and adding in the proper things to your nourishment, your supplementation, your sleep routine, like whatever we need to work on to make sure you are feeling better. And we will get you there. Patience is the biggest word I have to say about that because it took you this long to get here. It is going to take time to change.
I love that.
So just stop thinking that in a week everything's going to be different. You can definitely start feeling better in a week. I've had clients
Yep.
have that experience, but be patient with the hormone balance, be patient with the weight loss, be patient with healing your relationship with food. It takes time, but that's kind of a little snapshot of how I work with my clients, and we're always connected. They can message me, during the weekdays if they need support. Like I want to have them know that I'm there for them and that,
Yes.
if
Yes.
they need anything, I'm here. So yeah.
Yeah. You're there through the whole process.
Yes, it's important.
Literally walking them through this.
Yep.
Yep.
Side by side. Yeah,
Side by
I
side.
think that's the most important thing, to have somebody to walk side by side with you through this kind of
100%.
thing.
It's
Yeah.
100%. And what I love again is you're talking today about, things that we can actually shift and change
Yes.
and solutions and not feeling that way anymore. Ladies, we're not crazy. We're not crazy.
No.
No, 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 no. We're
Yeah.
just, we're in crazy sometimes. You know what I mean? We're not crazy ourselves. We're just in crazy because of our bodies and what's going on.
Yeah.
But there's things that we can do because, like you said, it could be hormonal, but it could be, something maybe not hormonal, but it can be like the patterns that, like you talked
Yeah.
about, simple things we can do, all the things. And you know what? Let me ask you this. How is life with you and your man now? I mean, like, what is the biggest change in how you show up now than when you were in, this phase in your life?
Honestly, it's very freeing and very
Oh,
grounding. I had to heal like serious fear of abandonment issues and attachment issues. Like for the first few years, that was all my stuff, of course. And healing that was so liberating because now it's like there's so much love, but it's not me like once week being like, oh my gosh, like, so it's just so freeing. And like my nervous system can regulate more and there's so much love and like support. Um, but at the same time, like we can like he can go to his shop and do his business and I can be here and do my stuff. And it's like there's always the excitement to come back together. And there's so much gratitude and appreciation expressed all the time. Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm so grateful that this is what ended up unfolding and it just keeps getting better.
and you know what? And what I love the too, it really did start with you.
Yeah,
It
it
started
did.
with you.
Yeah.
And I love that because, you guys, and I do believe this with all my heart. I know that yes, we have to take care of ourselves first. We have to do all that stuff, which is wonderful that we get to do that. We get
Hmm.
to do that. But also, we're not meant to be on an island by ourselves.
No.
And we are meant to have a great connection
Yeah.
and grow with someone. And that is actually a gift in itself too.
Yeah.
And it's available for all of us. So
Yes.
don't give up on that. Don't
No.
give up on great love. Don't think it's not in the cards for you. Yes, it is. Yes, it
Yeah.
is. Yes, it is. Of course it is.
Yes.
And just realize that it is. It is available for all of us. And it's a really cool thing when
Mhm.
it's right.
It is.
When
It's
it's
such a
right.
gift.
It's such a gift. Is there anything else? I know, look at our time went already.
Oh my gosh, it
Is there
flew.
anything else that that maybe I didn't ask you that you want to say before we have to get off?
I think it's just reaffirming what you said earlier. Give yourself more grace, be patient with yourself, have compassion for what you're feeling and what you're going through. You're not alone. It's not your fault. And it is your responsibility, though, to do something about it. So take one
100%.
little step today to do something about it.
Take one little step today.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank
Oh,
you so
thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. We went so fast, but okay. We'll come back for part 2. The
Yeah.
yeah, totally.
Anytime.
But cheers to great love. Let's talk about the tip of the week, which is pay attention to your hormones. So often we judge ourselves for not having enough willpower or feeling moody, anxious, or drained. But so much of this might actually be psychological. Start by noticing patterns. Are you more tired at certain times of the month? Do you feel more anxious after skipping meals or loading up on caffeine? Little shifts like balancing your blood sugar, managing stress so your cortisol doesn't hijack your system, and supporting your body with nourishing foods can completely change how you feel physically and emotionally. And here's why this matters so much. Your hormones don't just impact your energy and mood. They also shape how you see things. They influence how patient or irritable you are, how connected or distant you feel, and even how you perceive the people closest to you. That's why understanding where you are hormonally isn't just about feeling better in your body. It's about protecting your relationships too. When you know what's going on under the surface, you can give yourself more grace, communicate your needs, and show up with so much more love and compassion. That's a wrap. Oh, I love this conversation with Amber today. That was such an important conversation because it's such a powerful reminder that so much of what we feel isn't just in our heads, it's in our bodies. Our hormones play a huge role in our energy, our mood, and even how we show up in relationships. And so does the relationship we have with food. Because when we're using food to cope, numb, or fill emotional gaps, it doesn't just affect our health. It impacts how we love, how we connect, and how we show up for other and people around us. I hope this episode gives you permission to start getting curious, to tune in, and to support your body with so much compassion and so much care. If you're loving this podcast and these incredible conversations, please hit the subscribe button and leave a 5-star review. Don't miss an episode because each week I'll be bringing on guests and experts who will share their knowledge about love, dating, and relationships so you can apply it into your own life. I'll see you next week. And until then, cheers to great love.